His squad car up on the ramp to 41 to watch for the white Oldsmobile. An unmarked state trooper's car went screaming past, lights flashing and sirens blaring. He grabbed his mic as his foot hit the accelerator. "I think her car just went by. Is someone behind her in an unmarked squad car?" 10-4, Ida. State car is behind her. She's passing cars on the shoulder. I'm right behind them. Morgan glanced down at his speedometer as he hit his siren. 70 miles per hour and climbing. 80, 90, and still he couldn't catch up. And the ramp for Highway 43 was coming up fast. Hitting his brakes, he swung over into the right lane. Suddenly, dispatch barked into the radio. "State Police Officer Boldt is right behind her, but she isn't pulling over. She's increased speed. All units be advised, she is heading for the bridge." The dump truck in front of Morgan slowed down for the treacherous S-turn on the exit ramp, either ignoring or unable to hear the sirens right behind him. Morgan moved a little to the left, hoping to get the truck driver's attention, but the effort was wasted. The truck merely slowed into the turn, leaving no room for Morgan to slide past him. Slamming his hand on the steering wheel, he eased back to wait for his chance to get around the dump truck. He could only pray there was enough time. Once he hit the bottom of the ramp, it would be just over a mile to the bridge. Seconds felt like minutes. As he monitored his deputies, received updates on the suicidal woman, and impatiently followed the dump truck, Bill Morgan felt his heart pounding into overdrive. When they reached the bottom of the ramp, Bill glanced in his mirrors, saw the opening, and shot out onto Highway 43. Up ahead, he could see Boldt's lights flashing. He pressed down on the accelerator, taking the squad car to the limit. 90, 100, 110, 120. He hit the bottom of the bridge and saw the state police car skid to a stop at the top of the bridge. No, no, no. He glanced in his rearview mirror and saw another car, lights flashing, right on his tail. He grabbed his mic. "We're on the bridge." Slamming on the brakes, he skidded to a stop next to Boldt's car. There was no sign of the woman, and no sign of Trooper Boldt. His heart fell, and he reported back to dispatch. "She jumped." Preface. A few thoughts. If you're not prepared, the drama of this book could wear you out. It's my real-life drama, dealing with postpartum depression, PPD, and the traumas I have endured throughout my life. Many women who suffer from postpartum depression get over it quickly. They had a good childhood and no other psychological issues, and not long after giving birth, the chemical imbalance they experienced returns to normal. End of story. But if there are other emotional traumas that haven't been dealt with, the postpartum trigger can drop a huge emotional bomb into a woman's life. I'm the first to admit that some aspects of my story are extreme. I didn't just have PPD. I had PPD as well as long-term sexual abuse by someone I trusted. I didn't experience only PPD and sexual abuse, but my mother rejected me when she discovered the abuse. I didn't experience only the PPD, the sexual abuse, and the rejection, but the residual effects of these things led to my making bad decisions, which in turn produced other hurtful events. It was a never-ending cycle that led me to the bridge that morning. I'm not writing this book so that people will feel sorry for me. Rather, I want this book to give someone else hope, the hope that she can be a survivor and start living a happy and whole life. And while this book will firmly address the important issue of PPD, my problems were much bigger than that. They stem from childhood trauma, emotional triggers, unresolved pain, abandonment, marital dilemmas, and faith trials. But my story is also about many great friends, successes, setbacks, and finally a road filled with hope. My story is about a lifetime packaged with pain, and how through the gift of friendship, a strong measure of faith, a loving spouse, and some good medications, I have progressed from wanting to end it all to having much more to look forward to than I could ever have imagined. What I want to say is this: if I can make it through all the traumas I've gone through, you or your loved one can too. It wasn't easy. It didn't happen overnight, but the process was worth it, every painful step. And while I know that I am not yet 100% out of the woods emotionally, I also know that few people are. We all carry baggage that affects us in our adult years. I've changed the names of many people in this book to protect their privacy. I've tried to tell my story to the best of my ability and recollection. For parts of the story, I've had to rely on others to fill in the gaps of my memory or for information I didn't know at the time the events were happening. For instance, when you read my account of the jump later in the book, I obviously didn't know the officers' names at the time they were pursuing me, but it is easier to tell the story now by identifying them by name. If you're experiencing any kind of abuse or depression, it is essential for you to seek professional advice, whether medical, psychological, or legal. Nothing in this book is intended to provide specific advice for your situation. It is simply a telling of my own story. I'm going to start where my story begins, and if you'll stay with me, you'll see how hope begins and how happy endings are possible. And I think you'll see that God did a miracle in me and in my family. Because of the grip of a caring and brave policeman, I've been given a second chance at life. And because of that, I get to experience the joy of two precious children, my husband and my friends, joy that I would have missed out on had I been successful in jumping 200 feet to my death. You know some of the ending, I'm still here, but the story has a beginning, an all too familiar beginning. So let's start there. Just a few months after my 5th birthday, I had been excited about starting school, but that excitement was wiped out, and each day at school became little more than a temporary reprieve from my suffering. When I was only 5, all my joy, innocence, and naivete were shattered, and life became a living nightmare. Chapter 1. Little Girl Lost. August 1973, Ashwaubenon, Wisconsin. Whitney, take Kyle outside and play, but you stay in the yard, you hear me? My father yelled the directions to my younger sister. I was lying on the floor with a puzzle, engrossed in the delight of the picture falling into place. Just a few more pieces and I'd be done. I had turned 5 years old in April, and my mom and dad had given me the puzzle for my birthday. It was a great puzzle, so I dawdled for a few more minutes. I didn't want to go outside with Kyle and Whitney. I wanted to finish my puzzle. But as Whitney passed me, holding Kyle's hand, I stood up and followed them to the back door. Not you, Tina. You stay here, Dad said. Whitney, younger than me by a year, gave me a smirk. She thought I was in trouble. But I hadn't done anything, at least not that I could remember. Tina, get downstairs now. There was something in my dad's voice that made everything in me go very, very still. It was more than a tone that brooked no argument. He always had that. But this was something deeper and far more intimidating. Slowly I walked over to the basement steps. I hated going down into that basement. There were spiders down there. Why? He grabbed my arm and jerked me forward. Don't ask me stupid questions. Just do what I tell you. Mom was at work, so there would be no help from her, although it was rare that she would challenge Dad about anything he chose to do. My mind raced with questions. What had I done to make him mad? Why did I have to go to the basement? Maybe someone had spilled laundry detergent on the floor and I was going to get punished for it. The basement was cool and damp, the concrete blocks marked in some places by water stains and mold. Old boxes were stacked in the corner, holding belongings that the family no longer used. My sled hung from nails in the exposed beams overhead, along with ice skates, wire, fishing poles, and rope. The washing machine stood silent under the single bulb that hung from the ceiling and gave a little light to the dreary basement. The 2 well windows let in precious little sun. Daddy? We reached the bottom of the steps, and he took my arm again, leading me back around under the stairs to the desk he had set up. My mother had wondered why he wanted to set up a small office down in the basement. It was so dank and dark. but he insisted he needed a quiet place to work. Dad sat down.